If you've tuned into last night's Joe Biden press conference,
distinguished guests, the President of the United States, Joe Biden,
then I am certain you saw exactly what you were looking for. And what I mean by that is if you are a die-hard Joe Biden, Kamala Harris supporter, then what you witnessed was our president demonstrating his mastery of foreign policy from China to Russia to the Middle East.
Or with President Xi, that a few years from now, you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do, what they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating, they're getting access to additional, they're not supplying weapons themselves, they're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I handed all my notes. But my point is that Xi believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we have to make clear China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for.
And as a Biden-Harris fan, you also saw our president offer some zingers directed at Donald Trump.
Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
The limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, and if you looked at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore. I've done, where's Trump been? Riding around in his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball?
As well as some very poetic and poignant moments reflecting on the aging process.
You know, the only thing age does is help you with it, creates a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention.
On the other hand, if you are someone who has been secretly or vocally advocating for Joe Biden to stand down, then you saw and heard something entirely different. What you would have focused on are the few gaffes and coughing and his speaking slowly and still appearing to be the 81-year-old man that he is. In particular, what's getting a lot of attention from those who are gunning for him to get out of the race is the fact that he messed up at one point and referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump.
And separately, what concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
Now, the fact that people dig into their positions is not surprising. But what I did find surprising and somewhat anxiety-provoking was that at the end of the press conference, I observed that Joe Biden left the door open a crack for the possibility that he might stand down. And that gave me discomfort because I kind of want to know one way or another what we are dealing with. So let me play that and then we can talk about it on the other side.
You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Yes.
If your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump, would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win.
Okay, so what I heard there was a very different response than what he gave to George Stephanopoulos last week. Remember, a week ago, he said that it would take the Almighty to come down and tell him to drop out of the race. Now he's suggesting that if someone came to him and told him that there was no way he could win, then he would step aside. And what I also hear him saying is that he understands if people want to challenge him at the convention.
The bottom line is all the polling data right now, which I think is premature because the campaign really hasn't even started. I mean, it hadn't started in earnest yet. Most of the time, it doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day. So a lot can happen. But I think I'm the best I believe I'm the best qualified to govern. And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other people who could beat Trump too. But it's awful start from scratch.
As they assess what they want to say about your candidacy, I'm wondering how you're thinking of this right now. It seems like your answer is clear, but they're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way about whether how the next week or two goes would inform your...
Am I using that way, you say?
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears by let them see me out there.
This is not good. We need a candidate who has decided that he's staying in the race. I know that I need to be patient. I know that the next few days on the campaign trail, when he goes to Michigan and when he goes to Nevada, we will know more. But I want to tell you that I did not see done and done here. I saw some ambiguity. And my second story is that yesterday, the IRS announced that it had, over the past year, collected $1 billion from large corporations, complex partnerships, and high net worth individuals who were delinquent on their taxes. And what that $1 billion means can be seen in this graphic that the White House shared on social media. This $1 billion will provide more than 200 million free school lunches. It will provide around 200,000 Pell Grants to college students. That's a form of student loan. And also slots in the preschool Head Start program for 70,000 kids. Now, I think you get the idea why it is that Donald Trump's Project 2025 wants to do things like cut Head Start, because they understand that collecting delinquent taxes from large corporations and complex entities and high net worth people pays for these programs, and they don't like taxes. And my final story before Crazy Town is good news on the economic front. For the first time since 2021, during the COVID pandemic, prices are dropping. We know this because yesterday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics announced that the Consumer Price Index had dropped 0.1%. And in conjunction with this, this means the annual rate of inflation is now down to 3% from where it was in May at 3.3%. Now that's a lot of numbers and a lot of percentages. The bottom line is this means it will cost us less when we go buy groceries and fill up the car at the gas station. In addition to this news, though, we just heard the other day on MSNBC from economist Steve Ratner that Joe Biden did more for job growth than Donald Trump did. And this includes the impact of COVID. Welcome to Crazy Town. Today, we are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the Republican National Convention is about to begin. And what makes this place especially nutso is that the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 appears to be sponsoring the convention. Yes, that same project that Donald Trump claims he knows nothing about, hasn't read, but doesn't support, is front and center for all the events. And of course, we know that it was created for Donald Trump. We should just call it the Donald Trump Project 2025. And we know that many of the authors of this horrific blueprint to install fascism and take away our freedom are people who worked with Donald Trump and who he would hire in the future. And adding to this, sort of swirling in this stew of Project 2025, remember the plan that would kill Head Start, that would end the Department of Education, that would ban abortion nationwide, that would no longer allow civil servants to get overtime pay. I could go on and on and on. It turns out that a clip has surfaced of Donald Trump actually talking about it. Let's listen.
Our country is going to hell. The critical job of institutions such as Heritage is to lay the groundwork, and Heritage does such an incredible job at that. This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
And sure, that was a long time ago, but J.D. Vance, who is in line and could be possibly the VP selected by Donald Trump, was just talking about how he supports Project 2025.
Most Americans couldn't care less about Project 2025. I reviewed a lot of it. There's some good ideas in there, Rob.
So let's make it stick to them. Let's get ready for the craziest Republican National Convention next week. During Morning Jen, I will definitely talk to you about what went down there and what we need to be worried about. Thanks for watching. Later today, we are launching a new program on Mary Trump Media, Democracy-ish, with Danielle Moody and Waj Ali. And then tomorrow, Saturday, we will have the first episode of Brian Karem's Reverse Shot. On Sunday at 6 p.m., the Nerd Avengers will be back. Remember to subscribe to Mary Trump Media so you don't miss any of our programming. Have a fantastic weekend.